Ever since I was a child, I remember my mom telling me that I always wanted to do everything alone ever since I was a little girl. So I wanted, for example, to pick my own clothes. I wanted to tie my own shoelaces and things like this. And I refused to get any help from anyone. And then moving on to my school years, I did all of my schoolwork by myself, never asking for teachers' help or anything like that. And I grew to be very independent, not just in how I show up in my practical responsibilities in life, but also for the emotional side of things. If you're somebody that is hyper independent like me, that is usually not the best thing. It can have a lot of positives, obviously, but usually it means that you just pretended to be strong. You wanted to handle everything by yourself because it kind of reinforced an idea that you had of yourself that you wanted to believe was true, which is that you don't need other people. And if you do that, that likely means that you might also be shaming yourself for needing anyone's help at all. There might be an issue you might have encountered, whether it's an emotional or practical issue, and you might refuse to get help from somebody who understands the issue more deeply than you do, whether that's a therapist for the emotional side of things, or a very good friend, or whether it's a person who understands the area that you need help with specifically, whether that's for your finances, for your work, or anything like that. There are a lot of us who can handle a lot alone, but there is one thing that we tend to forget about, especially these days where everybody's trying to do everything by themselves, right? We are becoming even more hyper independent. Even those of us who are used to actually receiving help from other people, in this time and age, every single person is trying to be hyper independent because it's just a value that is being really held up as the standard, as the best thing to be, right? You need to have the best career, you need to be making the most amount of money, and these kinds of things. And of course, it's perpetuated by other things like the state of the economy in many countries and things like this, right? So it makes sense why we would be leaning towards being more independent. But I wanted to specifically talk about something I just reflected on that is changing everything for me, a completely different way of looking at yourself if you've become very independent in life. Although you might recognize that deep inside, you actually do want to receive support from others. You want to have someone else come in and tell you, you know what? It's okay that you're struggling with this. Let me actually give you the help that you might need here, instead of you just trying to go through it alone, just so you can prove to yourself that you are so independent and that you don't need anybody. And this mindset shift can completely change the way that you view your independence. Before I jump into the specifics of this mindset shift, I want you to ask a very important question to yourself, which I ask myself, and that really helped me understand what I might actually want for myself rather than me being very independent. Okay, so the question I asked myself was, and I want you to ask yourself is, will you 10, 20 years from now, say in just older age, would you want to look back and just say to yourself, wow, look at me, I achieved so much. I managed to climb up the ranks in my work. I managed to make a lot of money. I managed to succeed in this other area of life. Will you want to just look back and say that to yourself, that you accomplished all of that by yourself? Or would you rather go back and think to yourself, wow, I did so much in my life and I did it with all these people's support. I had my coworkers' support, I had my friends' support, and all of these other people that really helped me on my journey to becoming this version of myself that I am right now. Which one would you prefer? I think, at least if you value relationships a lot more than you allow yourself to believe, you will actually choose the second. You would prefer the second option. And as I asked myself this question, I understood that that's what I would personally prefer for myself. Okay, so my mindset shift was that being hyper independent is actually not that great after all, because like life is not very meaningful if it just involves you. It just involves you having accomplished a lot and having become so incredible. That is so lonely. That will be such a lonely existence where you can just reflect on that. And of course, it will be great that you've achieved all of your goals and dreams if you have. And it will be kind of rewarding to know that you were self-made, which a lot of people like to say, especially in the case of making money. A person's a self-made millionaire or is a self-made billionaire, right? But do you think that that's what would fulfill you? Or do you think it would just make you feel more lonely? Would you prefer to actually live your life having experienced the beauty that comes from having other people support you and be there for you? And as somebody who's just literally in the last year been allowing myself to be supported by other people, yes, I lived 23 years of my life not letting anyone support me in any way, but that is what I've been trying to change. And I've started realizing how important these relationships are and how they are actually one of the most important things in life. If that is something, of course, you yourself think, I think it's very important for you to reflect and reconsider whether your way of going about life is the right way for you, whether it's going to be fulfilling or whether it's just going to actually create even more of a bigger hole in your heart than you already have that you might be trying to look away from and pretend it's not even there. So what would you prefer? That is for you to answer that question. And I know my answer for you, it might still be that you want to be independent, and that is not something that bothers you. You didn't maybe pretend to be independent. It's something that you get genuine value out of, right? If that is the case for you, then maybe this is not going to be so important. But if not, do take a moment to reflect on this and then consider the actual steps you will need to take to start receiving more support from other people in your life, whether that's practical support, whether that's emotional support. And for me, the emotional support has been the most important, but I also recognize that in the practical areas of my life, I also need that support. And that is actually what will lead to more growth for you as well. Most things are not achieved in one's own company. Most things are achieved because you received support from others. And you probably have in many ways, even when you thought to yourself that, oh, it was me, I was able to accomplish this, but you might not have recognized something that helped you get there, like some kind of support you received from a teacher, from a parent, from a friend. You might not have reflected on having received so much help and how that actually contributed to you getting a meaningful outcome in anything you attempted to do. So relationships are important, and relying on others is important, and it's going to be a lot more meaningful. Having lived your life, having achieved everything alone, maybe is not so rewarding after all. But doing this is going to be hard because a lot of people are trying to be very independent in their own ways. But I feel like we are also potentially having a shift towards people understanding this and going back to connection. And I really hope that we get to actually do that. It will be a very wonderful thing. And I hope you actually join that movement as well. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up. And I would love to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.